Hey, welcome back to the channel. This is David Clayson, and today we are talking about ordination. And the reason we're talking about this today is because I'm starting the process to be ordained in the Assemblies of God. For those that don't know, I am currently licensed in the Assemblies of God, and I'm pastoring a church. I'm the senior pastor at a church in North Dakota, and I've been praying about it. I've been praying about it for a few years, and feeling led to make this year the year that I apply for ordination. So we're going to talk about that today. If you're listening, we'll go over what that means. What is ordination? What is licensing and all that here? Actually, right now. It works a little bit differently in different denominations. But ordained tends to be the highest honor, I guess you could say, in ministry. In the Assemblies of God, there's like 3 different levels of certification. The first one, or licensing, excuse me. The first one is certified. The second one is being a licensed minister, which is what I am, or I'm currently licensed. And then the third one is ordained. That's like the highest office, the highest level there that's honored in ministry. And so today I'm going to go over, you can find this handbook online pretty easily, over the Assemblies of God, what they say are the qualifications or the requirements for each one of these levels. So we're going to start out with certified minister. And it says, they shall show promise of usefulness in the gospel work. They shall devote full or part-time to Christian ministry, and at the discretion of district credential committees, remain under the supervision of a pastor or a ministry coach or mentor. They shall show evidence of a divine call and be actively engaged in some aspect of the ministry and proclamation of the gospel, except in case of ill health or advanced age. And so essentially, you need to be in ministry to be considered to be certified. And again, if you're going to be recognized by a denomination to be a minister, what's the point in doing that if you don't plan to be in ministry? It's pointless. And if you don't plan on being in ministry at all, part-time, full-time, whatever, I think you'd find it pretty hard to get licensed with any denomination, really. But that is certified. And this is for licensed minister, what I am right now. It says, qualifications for license shall include clear evidence of a divine call, character, and preparation suitable for that calling, practical ministry experience, and an evident purpose to devote one's life in service to the proclamation of the gospel. And so that is the licensing there. And then let me read what it says for ordination. It says, qualifications for ordination are outlined in the New Testament scriptures, 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1 through 17, and Titus 1, 7 through 9. It says, applicants must be 23 years of age or older. They must have met all the requirements of the North Dakota District Council in making application and in filling out the form. Ordination is a public recognition of a proven ministry. Therefore, ministers who have held a license and have been engaged in active work as a pastor, evangelist, or other proven ministry for at least 2 full consecutive years shall be eligible to apply for ordination when recommended by their fellow ministers, presbyter, and district presbytery. They must be residents of the North Dakota district, because that's the district I'm in right now. This is the North Dakota district bylaws here for this. They must be residents of the North Dakota district at least 1 year and meet the requirements and secure the endorsement of the offices of the district with which they were previously licensed before receiving ordination. So if they're seeking ordination, they were licensed in a different district, and districts change throughout the United States. Like Texas has 3 districts for the Assemblies of God. They're split up into 3 districts. North Dakota is split up into 1 district, and a lot of states are split up into 1 district. But there's a bunch of different districts in the United States. But if they got licensed through a different district and now they're applying for ordination through another one, they have to get the permission from the first district that they got their license from to get ordained in another one. And then it goes on. If you read, it says salvation, you got to be saved. Baptism in the Holy Spirit, you got to be baptized in the Holy Spirit to get certified, licensed, or ordained in the Assemblies of God. We are a Pentecostal denomination. So you see like speaking in tongues, you see that's the initial physical evidence of the baptism in the Holy Spirit according to the Assemblies of God there. You need to have an evidence of your calling. You need to be lined up doctrinally with the Assemblies of God. You need to Assemblies of God polity. It says a satisfactory working knowledge of the principles, practices, and purposes of the fellowship through a study of the General Council and District Council's constitution and bylaws. You must agree to cooperate and commit to the fellowship, which the Assemblies of God is a fellowship. And then you have some basic educational requirements as well. And so it's a little bit different. Certification, the education level, each level you need some education in order to achieve that level on top of doing some other things. I think certification, see, don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% sure, but certification, you need to have an associate's. When I graduated college with a bachelor's in pastoral ministry, that's when I could start taking the test for credentialing. So the Assemblies of God has a list of approved Bible colleges that it will recognize in order for those graduates to seek credentialing. And I graduated from one of those colleges, but so you get your diploma from that college. That doesn't mean you're automatically licensed. You have to go to whatever district or state you plan to live in and go to that district and apply to that district itself to be certified or licensed or ordained. If you're going right out of college, you're not going to get ordained probably. But so the districts and the colleges are two separate entities there. So what happened for me is I graduated college, and what I did is I applied for credentials through the North Dakota Ministry Network, and I went and they took a test. I had to take a test, the doctrinal test, 16 fundamental truths of the Assemblies of God, and then I had an interview after that if I passed the test, which I passed the test, obviously. But then they got interviewed, and then we went to a ceremony as like an installment or a recognition of that calling. And so that's what the licensing process was like. The ordination process is a little bit different. If you remember, stick with me, camera. If you remember what I read there, you have to be in 2 years of proven ministry before you can seek ordination, and you have to be recommended by your presbyter, by other ministers, and I believe it said district officials in order to seek ordination. So for the way it works for us in North Dakota anyways, is we have our presbyters, or those that are the leaders over the state. They tend to reside in Bismarck there because that's the headquarters for our district. And so you have to get approval from them. And then you have a presbyter. So each district, going into the polity, as I was saying in that reading there, but each district is broken up even more into different sections. I'm in the northeast section of the North Dakota district of the Assemblies of God, and each section has its own leader that is over it. And so to be ordained, I have to seek that recommendation from my presbyter, as well as the district officials, as well as other ministers in the Assemblies of God, in order to seek that ordination, and then be in 2 years of full-time ministry. And after that, you fill out the application, and what happens is you go and you get interviewed by district officials, the district leadership, the executive board there, which is a lot of it's made up from different all the presbyters from around the state. And so that's the process of ordination. It's a little bit different than licensing now. It used to be where you had to take another test for ordination, but now it's not like that. But it's interesting here. I want to quickly, almost 10 minutes this video. I want to quickly go over the application itself. There's some different things. 2 things, I guess. They want you to get background checked. They want to make sure like you don't have any criminal history or anything like that. It's just, honestly, it's protection not only for the district but for churches in the district as well. And that can go into a whole different video. We understand that we can be forgiven through the Lord, and all that. And so if you have criminal history, they just want to go through that. They'll run through that with you. But the one section I wanted to touch on, which I found interesting through this application, was the reference section. You have to go get references from 4 ordained ministers, which that's not too surprising. That's expected. It's almost like a job interview in that way. But what's surprising is that one of those 4 ministers has to be someone outside the Assemblies of God. They have to be ordained by another denomination, which is interesting because I'm kind of curious why they did that. If they want to make sure that you are building relationship not just with the Assemblies of God, but with other ministers as well, ministers in general. Well, really what the cause is for that. I think, that one had to get me thinking for my references. There's like, okay, because the town that I'm in, there is a priest in town, but that's the only other minister who would be ordained, and the other ministers are deacons or deaconesses, and so they're not ordained. That process is a little bit different for them. And then this priest just moved into town, and so I don't really have anybody that's ordained in town that I've been working with that would be able to give me a reference. There is someone outside our community in a different town close by that I'm looking at asking for a reference because they know me a little bit better. But it was just interesting. I wanted to point that one out, that it's that you had to seek a reference from someone that's ordained outside the Assemblies of God. That was just interesting. I'm curious if the reason they're doing that is to make you make sure that you're working. I don't know. Make sure that you're working with those in the church at large. Because remember, the church is not just one single church that meets every Sunday, but the church as a whole is every believer, every follower of Christ in the world. That's the church as a whole. So maybe that's the reason why they're wanting that. But yeah, that was just interesting. So anyways, I'm seeking ordination. I'm going to fill out this application, and then I'm going to go get interviewed in January or February in there by those presbyters I was talking about. It should be interesting. I think, there wasn't, honestly, when I was getting licensed, there wasn't too many challenging questions from them, but I feel since there is no other test or no other way other than that application with those references, that there are going to be some pretty deep questions that are asked, some challenging questions that are asked of me in that ordination interview. And we'll see. And so they'll decide, hopefully they're listening to the Holy Spirit, whether I'm supposed to be ordained or not. And if I am, then, ordination in the Assemblies of God, that's a confirmation of your ministry. It's okay, we recognize you, that you're doing ministry, you're working for the Lord, and you're finding the Lord's using you in that ministry. And also quickly here, this video's getting kind of long, but quickly, ordination, it's not like a hierarchy where if you're an ordained minister, you can go tell a licensed minister, hey, go do this, and they have to go do that. It's not like a hierarchy in that manner. It's more a recognition of the ministry. It's honoring the ministry, saying, okay, the Lord's called you, and it's being proven by your ministry. So it's like that recognition there of what you're doing. And so it's like an honoring thing. Really. And so yeah. So this is part 1 of this video. I'll do a part 2 and I'll take this camera with me. This is a small camera here. I'll take this camera with me, and after our interview, I will talk a little bit about the questions in that interview, just to share with you. And if they feel like I am ready to be ordained, then I will bring this camera for part 3. For the actual ordination ceremony, we have our annual business meeting for our district. Happens in happens in May. So we go down there, and that's also when the ceremony is for everything too. So that, if they feel I'm ready to be ordained, that I'll bring you for that too. But yeah, all right. With all that said, I'm seeking ordination. So want to bring you guys along in that process there, and just go with that. So yeah, thanks guys for watching. Hey, if you want to catch part 2 and maybe part 3, depending on how part 2 goes, be sure to subscribe and tell others about the channel. I don't know. Maybe you're looking at getting into ministry, and this is just one of those processes. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we will catch you guys in the next video. Have a blessed day.